Hi there, this is John Wilkinson again from History Made Easier, with a presentation that will look first at the culmination of what the Germans had learned on the battlefields of World War I, and then at what the British and French had learned. So I'll begin with the Germans, and with the Ludendorff offensive, or Spring Offensive, of 1918. Ludendorff decided against a lengthy preliminary bombardment, but on the morning of the attack bombarded the British defences, its artillery and command posts, telephone exchanges, crossroads, supply dumps and reserve trenches, with explosive and shrapnel shells, and with gas, finishing with a 30-minute intensive bombardment, a hurricane barrage on the British front lines. Tear gas, mustard gas and phosgene gas were all used. This was then followed not by a mass assault, but by a rapid deployment of small detachments of stormtroopers under the cover of a creeping barrage. These stormtroopers were armed with lightweight submachine guns and grenades, attacking predetermined weak points with the aim of infiltrating the enemy lines. Speed, flexibility of movement and the element of surprise were seen as the key to success. A second wave of infantry was sent in to consolidate what had been gained. The stronger positions could then be attacked with heavier weapons. The name given to this innovative tactic was infiltration tactics. The British were pushed back more than 60 kilometres and were close to collapse. This was a return to open warfare and a war of movement. But as had been the case in any breakthrough in the war, once the Germans had advanced beyond their supply lines, they struggled to hold what they had gained. Not that the Germans stopped. They regrouped and kept coming, again and again, 5 times in total. It really was back to 1914 and the Battle of the Frontiers, but the Entente powers were able to hold them off. So, think of the application of technology here. Aircraft for reconnaissance of targets, the use of gas, different types of shells, and don't forget, both the artillery guns and the shells have been improved a lot as the war progressed. The lightweight machine gun that had turned a defensive weapon into one that can be used in attacks. The effective application of technology. The British and French, now with American support, were able to regroup and hit back hard. Here was all arms warfare. The integration of predicted fire and the creeping barrage, all the new weaponry, including tanks and planes strafing and bombing the enemy from above, and with the infantry attacking not in lines but in small groups. This was the Western Front in 1918, very different from 1915, 1916 and much of 1917. All arms battle was the integration of all the new weaponry and the culmination of what the British and French had been learning in 3 years of bitter fighting on the Western Front. As the historian Peter Hart puts it, the Germans were hit with firepower more than manpower. Thanks to the RAF and flash spotters and sound rangers, the British guns knew where just about every German gun was placed, and after 3 years' experience, they were very accurate. There were also enough guns for both a barrage aimed at the German guns as well as a creeping barrage to cover the initial attack. Infantry and more than 300 tanks attacked behind the creeping barrage. The tanks were used to crush the barbed wire and to take out any surviving German strongpoints. The infantry carried, as well as their rifles, light machine guns, mortars and rifle grenades, and were covered by heavy machine gun fire. And they no longer advanced in lines, but in small groups. This was all supported from the air, as planes strafed the German defences, bombed supply routes and airfields, and reported back on the progress of the attack. Whilst behind the advance, more tanks brought up supplies. The advances made were never too deep either, which meant that they could be held more easily, and the Germans were not to be given any chance to regroup, as the Germans were hit with a ripple of assaults right across the front. The Germans were now no longer in control, losing territory that they had held since the beginning of the war. Now again, let's think about the application of technology here. Predicted fire, flash spotting. Okay, using maths and maps more than technology, but sound ranging, using microphones. The tank at last being put to good use. Light machine guns and rifle grenades. And planes strafing the German defences, bombing supply routes and airfields, and, as I've said, reporting back on the progress of the attack. So, a short presentation, though it repeats things I've said in other presentations, it nevertheless, I think, serves to underline what had been learned on the different fronts of World War I, at great cost, I should add. And though Germany was a spent force after the Ludendorff offensive, and the American troops that landed in France made victory for the Allies well nigh inevitable, victory wouldn't have been achieved in 1918 without all-arms battle. What's also important is that this technology will be used to even greater effect in future wars. Think about that. And think about checking out my website, History Made Easier, if you haven't done so already. It's there to help you too. But for now, let me thank you so much for listening and wish you the very best of luck with your studies. Cheers.